As we kick off this week on Monday, August 17th, there's lots of action and news to unpack from yesterday's practice for the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, August 16th, and I got all that for you guys right here on Packers Latest. I want to give a huge shout out to Kalshi for sponsoring this video. If you use code FANARCHFOOTBALL, you get $10 when you trade your first 10, so you do not want to miss out on that. Again, you can see on the bottom as well, FANARCHFOOTBALL is the code that you need to use. For the Green Bay Packers, we've talked about a lot of positives, some shakiness in that preseason game for sure, but there's things to learn from it. But we have to, unfortunately, just start on the negative side for this episode and talk about the defense and talk about one guy in Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon, the cornerback one for the Packers last year, a guy that I know many people weren't too happy with being the Packers cornerback one, a guy that gets $5 million a year and is kind of demanding more, right around $6 million a year, and a guy that has lost his starting role at the Green Bay Packers. There are so many bullet points about Keyshawn Nixon to unfold, and Keyshawn Nixon, I just wrote in the title right there, Nixon is down, because he seems to be going down in the depth chart, kind of down in the morale, down in how he's handling the media. Keyshawn Nixon is almost being a little bit of a headache in the Packers locker room. Maybe that's the wrong term. Maybe that's too extreme, but it feels like I talk about him every single episode, and I try not to, but there's just new news that comes about him every single time. So these controversies continue, and in practice, he has just continued to not play well. Was with the first team, then got sent down to the second team. We saw him in the preseason game, not able to really tackle a wide receiver, which has been his issue in the past, but doesn't really seem to be giving it his all. So per Ryan Wood on X, who was monitoring a lot of these plays in yesterday's practice, he said Matthew Golden gets behind Keyshawn Nixon on a go route. Jordan Love airs it out, and a defensive pass interference for about 40 yards called on Nixon as he tried to recover. So Keyshawn Nixon back with the first team, working with the big guys, however you want to word it, guarding Matthew Golden, and he gets a DPI. Again, Nixon has been with the second team over these past couple of days. You even go to the preseason game, it's not like the Steelers had their first team out there against Nixon when he was struggling on defense. A quote from Rob Domofsky that Keyshawn Nixon kind of talking about himself, about his role. Nixon said, "I guess I'm being punished right now. I guess. I don't know. I don't really worry about what I'm running in camp. The ones and twos, I just keep my process and compete." So how do you guys view that quote? I mean, he seems, I know what he means by I don't care, like wherever they put me, I'm going to do my process, I'm going to compete. But his process has not been pretty. His process has been being this head case in the Packers locker room. His process has been not tackling in a preseason game. His process has been, possibly holding out because he wants a new contract. So I don't know what the process is that Keyshawn Nixon is looking at. And, he says, the ones, the twos, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep it going. But it's just really concerning. Another quote here in response to Ryan Wood posting this on X. This quote says, "I came from the bottom, so I'm here. I'm in year 8. Since I've been here, I ain't been off the field, and anything they've asked me to do, I've played at a high level." So I know many people will not view how Keyshawn Nixon played at a high level. I mean, I will admit he came from the bottom. You work your way up. You're on the Green Bay Packers. You're the cornerback one. You've made multiple Pro Bowls, mostly as a returner, and then this past year as a fill-in because a lot of guys dropped out. So he has the accolades. He's touched on that time and time again, saying, I know what I've earned. I know what I got. I know that I can be a guy on this team, but it's just the attitude. It's the tryness is the wrong. It's just how much he's trying. Like that preseason game. Go back to that. He just didn't look good, and there's no other way to put it. And when you have a rookie in Brandon Cisse and you have a new addition in Benjamin St-Juste that are coming into this cornerback room to compete with you, I feel like you have to step up more than ever. This is not a guaranteed CB1 role because you were there last season with the team, and these new guys that come in will go below you. Because right now it seems these new guys coming in, even one of them being Brandon Cisse, who has 0 NFL experience in a full regular season. He only has this one preseason game. A guy like Cisse is one that is starting to jump above Keyshawn Nixon. It's really concerning for Nixon's case. It's concerning for the Green Bay Packers because this cornerback room is already thin, and it could get thinner if Nixon starts to really downfall. And one more quote as well from Rob Domofsky on X that he got from the media availability with Matt LaFleur speaking, kind of talking on the tackling, talking on the defensive side. He just says, "We need corners that are willing and capable tacklers." And we know that Keyshawn Nixon is not that type of corner. He's not known as a big tackling corner, and that's what Matt LaFleur wants. That's the type of defense Jonathan Gannon's trying to put together, and Keyshawn Nixon, his name doesn't really fit in that category, which will be something to track. But again, talking about Brandon Cisse, he's honestly been better than Nixon, even though he just got drafted a couple months ago and he has limited action. He is working with the ones time and time again and putting up some pretty impressive defensive stops. Rob Demoski on X said the play of the day so far was Brandon Cisse, who undercut an out by Matthew Golden and picked off Jordan Love to end a 2-minute drive. So if we want to compare that, Cisse is the play of the day in Rob Demoski's opinion, undercutting an out by Matthew Golden for an interception off of Jordan Love. You go to what Ryan Wood observed, and it says Matthew Golden gets behind Keyshawn Nixon on a go route, Jordan Love airs it out, and a DPI for about 40 yards. Two totally, I know it's like, maybe a little different routes, but same receiver, same quarterback, two totally different results. One of them is a 40-yard penalty, and one of them is an interception. Cisse really has seemed to get that edge over Keyshawn Nixon. But that's enough talk about Nixon. I feel like I talk about him every episode, but it feels like new things come out every single episode, so he will still be a name to track in this cornerback room, but it really seems like Brandon Cisse, Benjamin St-Juste could be this 1 and 2 here. And now you even have a Damani Jackson who is coming back from the injury that he's been dealing with. We'll be curious to see where he fits in. But let's swing it on over, stay on the defensive side, but let's talk about Keaton Oladapo. He's stepping up in the secondary, kind of played, in the safety room with the corners. He's a guy that's been with the Packers for the past couple of seasons, really trying to break through and get on this 53-man roster, but with Bullard out with a foot injury, Oladapo has been the main replacement, so he is getting more opportunities. Some notes right here from Packers.com on what Oladapo did in practice. It says he got a sack of Will Howard on a slot blitz during last week's preseason opener in Pittsburgh, but then in practice, he followed it up with an interception off of Love to end a 2-minute period yesterday. So he's showing it on the field. He's given that effort, unlike Nixon a little bit, and then he's getting an interception off of your QB1 in practice. There's always two ways to look at that, where I've kind of read a couple things saying, Jordan Love's throwing a couple picks, but hey, tip of the cap to Keaton Oladapo. A quote right here about Oladapo, because he's a guy that played safety at Oregon State for most of his first few seasons, and also most of his first 2 seasons in Green Bay, but he's kind of had that role shift, and Oladapo talked on it. He says, I'm just trying to be as versatile as possible. Just got to get used to the new run fits and alignment, working on my press technique, especially guarding guys like Reed. And it's another opportunity, it's another obstacle, and I gotta face, and I'm just excited. So, like, you compare this. There's a reason I put this bullet point back to back to Keyshawn Nixon's. You compare Keyshawn Nixon, he's down, he's saying, I'm going to do my process, I don't care kind of a thing. Oladapo is saying, I'm going to be here however you need me and I will play wherever. Like, these are two totally different scenarios. And I know Keyshawn Nixon's been with the Packers on the 53-man for multiple years, and Oladapo's trying to get there. But that's just so different. And I know there's skill and there's your attitude towards the game, but usually when you have a better attitude towards the game, your skill, your chances of wanting to get better go higher. And we're seeing this with a guy like Oladapo. This is a name that is interesting to me. You even want to throw in a Jalen Simpson, that's a name that could be interesting to me, ahead of a guy like Keyshawn Nixon. Again, I'm not trying to knock Nixon much, but he's almost doing it to himself. So neat to see that Oladapo is fitting in this new role with Bullard out with the foot injury. If they need him in a different part of the defense, he always seems to be a guy that is stepping up. So he's a guy that could be earning a role. Keyshawn Nixon, I don't really know what he's doing with this role. It'll be a lot to track. But before we get into Aaron Banks and what his role could be, do have to give a shout out to today's video sponsor, which is Kalshi. Before the season even kicks off, everyone is making predictions, and like, who wins the division, who's going to make the playoffs, will the Packers make the playoffs and or win the division, who is lifting the trophy at the end. But on Kalshi, which is America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions into the live market. So let's actually talk about the Green Bay Packers. I won't go as far as Super Bowl because we haven't seen the Packers on that stage in what is way too many years' time. Don't even want to say the years out of my mouth in early 2010. This been a while. Anyway, let's take it one notch back. I'm gonna go NFC Championship. You got to win the NFC Championship to make the Super Bowl. I won't talk about winning the Super Bowl yet because we have concerns with guys like Keyshawn Nixon, and we got to figure that out. But will the Packers win the NFC Championship by the end of the season? Well, they are currently trading at 9% on Kalshi. So meaning if you had a $100 trade, that would pay out $1,174 if they took home the NFC Championship, which is a pretty interesting return. I know you got the Los Angeles Rams and some other teams to deal with. The teams that actually sit above the Packers on Kalshi right now are those Los Angeles Rams, as well as the Seattle Seahawks, Philadelphia Eagles, Detroit Lions, and San Francisco 49ers, and kind of tucked in right beside the Packers with similar odds are the Chicago Bears and Dallas Cowboys. So if you feel like the Packers might be getting undervalued, which I kind of think they are, this could be a good opportunity. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. and the probability changes so you can buy in and out of your position. You trade the draft pick, the game, and even more on Kalshi. I know I only talked about this NFC Championship, but there are tons of things that you can do, even just outside the Green Bay Packers as well. Maybe you want to trade on the Chicago Bears in a negative way, trade against them. You can do that as well. So make sure to download the Kalshi app and use code FANARCHFOOTBALL to get $10 when you trade $10. You must be 18 years old or older. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Even event contract trades involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. But once more, again, 18 years or older to apply, and make sure that, maybe you want to put a trade on the Green Bay Packers. Let's swing this back to Packers talk. Talk about Aaron Banks. This is a guy that might have lost his starting role as well. Is it as much of an attitude or not effort as Keyshawn Nixon? No, it is more of just honestly not playing up to the contract that he got. This is a guy that signed a $77 million contract with the Green Bay Packers coming over from the San Francisco 49ers. And Aaron Banks has been a very honestly disappointing is the word I'm going to use for how much money he's getting paid. He's a guy that keeps getting hurt. He's a guy that even when he's in there's no flash. Like he's all right. There's no big drag that it's like, thank God we paid him $77 million. That's a steal. It's a lot of people thinking the other way. So it sounds like that Banks may have lost the starting left guard spot because in media availability, Matt LaFleur really spoke on it and spoke on the offensive line competition. Banks getting hurt, hasn't really been out there. Other guys like a Jagger Burton, who just got drafted in this year's NFL draft out of the University of Kentucky, have been getting these opportunities. Even a Jacob Monk, who's been there for a little bit, is getting more opportunities because Banks continues to get hurt. And Matt LaFleur spoke on those two guys, saying, I think Jagger and Monk are going to make the decision extremely difficult. That's the decision of should Banks still be the starting left guard. And then LaFleur also declined to answer if Banks recently underwent surgery in that same immediate availability, but it recently came out yesterday via Banks that he did not get any knee surgery. But the fact that Matt LaFleur got asked that question and he kind of said, you can ask Banks yourself, a little bit concerning. Doesn't really seem too pleased with Banks. Again, he signed that $77 million deal in the offseason last year. So tough news around Aaron Banks. He's probably the worst contract that the Green Bay Packers have right now. Really hoping he's able to figure it out, but it's the fact that he keeps getting hurt. This is a knee injury, and even when he's in there, he's not a flashy, highly touted guard that should be worth $77 million in my opinion, but it might open up opportunities for a Jagger Burton. Now, it's unfortunate that you have to pay $77 million to put a guy on the bench and then possibly see that Jagger Burton could be the guy, but that's how it's rolling in Green Bay right now. But let's go to the positives. We talked about how Nixon is kind of being a head case. We talked about a positive with Oladapo, brought a little bit back down with Banks. Let's bring it up once more and talk about Tucker Kraft. This is a guy that is back in action with the Green Bay Packers, and it feels so nice to say that, actually getting some 11 on 11 time. He caught all 5 targets that he had in his return to 11 on 11 yesterday, which was nice to see. His biggest play, per the Packers themselves on Packers.com, they said his biggest play was catching a 12-yard touchdown from Jordan Love off a slant during the final team period. It was another positive step in Kraft's road to recovery from a torn ACL he suffered last November against Carolina. That's what Packers.com had to say about it. And what does Tucker Kraft have to say about it? And how much he'd love to participate in next week's joint practice against Arizona. He talks about the reality of the timeline and how he is trusting that. We know the Green Bay Packers are a team that they do not rush guys back because they do not want to get them re-injured after they've spent months upon months upon months coming back. A quote from Kraft right here. It says, like I've said since the beginning of training camp, they have a plan for me. Week by week, they're going to gradually increase my snap count depending on the full rep range of practice. So my job is just to be out there and answer when my number's called. And I really like that. We talk and go back to Nixon. That's a guy that doesn't really know his job and has a quote, my process, me, Kraft. I know it's coming back from an injury, totally different scenario, but saying, I trust the organization. I trust these guys. I want to be with them. I'm going to take it however they want it. That shows how much he means to the Green Bay Packers team, really appreciating the organization. And we want to talk about the organization. There's also a little hint at possibly extension talks. Tucker Kraft always seems to get that question because it is one that is floating around. An extension for Tucker Kraft is very interesting. Feels like a tight end that could reset the tight end market, but you also got hurt against Carolina, tearing your ACL in week 9. So maybe is his contract a little bit lower than it could have been if he played all through last season. Kraft said the goal is to get an extension done by the start of the regular season, but is leaving that in the hands of his agents, the Packers front office, and the good Lord above. And that's all I got for this episode of Packers Latest. Lots of news surrounding the green and gold, so you don't want to miss out on any of that. Feel free to subscribe to the show, whether you're live right now face to face or you're catching this on a different outlet, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it's all on there. And make sure to follow the Facebook page, Packers Latest. If you can't catch every video, always will have some tidbit clips on every single episode. But again, some positives and negatives per usual for the Green Bay Packers. Feel free to leave in the comments down below. What do you think the deal with Keyshawn Nixon is? I feel like I can predict those comments. What do you think about Keaton Oladapo? Is that a guy that could truly make the 53-man? Do you want Aaron Banks to even be starting if he's healthy and ready to go? And how excited are you for Tucker Kraft to be back? Feel free to answer all those in the comment section down below. And again, a huge shout out to Cal Sheet for sponsoring this video. And as always, go Pack, go.